The billionaire steps out of his sleek black SUV, expecting another quiet morning on his private farm. But as the wind moves through the fields, his world stops cold. Standing near the old barn is a woman he thought he'd never see again, his ex-wife. And beside her, 3 children stare back at him, each with his unmistakable eyes, his smile, and his face. Shock ripples through him. The man who built empires and conquered markets suddenly feels powerless. Why was she here? And how could those children look exactly like him? He stepped out of his black SUV just as the sun rose over the fields. The billionaire, Ethan Carter, had built his empire from nothing, a real estate giant, hotels in 3 countries, his face on magazines. People called him the king of deals. But behind the power, the money, and the charm, there was one truth he never shared. The woman he once loved more than anything. Her name was Naomi. Years ago, they were unstoppable together, young, hungry for success, believing love could survive anything. But success came with pride, and pride came with distance. When Ethan started climbing higher, he began to forget where he came from and who helped him reach there. Naomi was the one who'd stood by him when he had nothing, but as his world grew richer, hers began to fade away. The arguments turned to silence. The love turned to pain. And one day, she left. That was 6 years ago. Ethan never saw her again, never tried to call. He buried himself in business, in meetings, in deals that filled his wallet but emptied his heart. Until today, it was supposed to be an ordinary visit to one of his farms, a quiet morning, checking on his staff, reviewing a new expansion project. But when he turned the corner of the barn, his steps froze. A woman stood there, holding a small basket of vegetables. Her dark skin glowed in the sunlight, her curls tied loosely, her presence calm yet strong, so familiar it made his chest ache. It was Naomi. For a second, he thought he was dreaming. But then he saw them, 3 children playing near the fence, chasing each other and laughing loudly. The boy had Ethan's sharp jawline. The little girl's smile was exactly like his mother's. The youngest, a tiny one in overalls, had Ethan's own eyes, those hazel eyes everyone used to compliment. He felt the ground slip under his feet. "Naomi," he whispered. She turned, her expression freezing too. The basket almost slipped from her hands. "Ethan," she said softly, her voice trembling between shock and pain. For a long moment, they just stood there, 2 people who shared a past too deep for words. The only sound was the wind moving through the crops and the children's laughter echoing behind them. Finally, Ethan spoke. "What are you doing here?" Naomi took a breath, steady but guarded. "I work here." He blinked. "Work here? On my farm?" She nodded. "Yes. I didn't know it belonged to you until now." The truth hit him like a storm. His own ex-wife, the woman he had once promised the world to, was now working as a helper on his land. And those 3 kids, his eyes moved to them again. The resemblance was too strong to ignore. Every feature screamed his blood. But the question that burned in his chest was one he could barely speak. "Naomi," he said, voice shaking, "who are they?" She looked at him, her eyes filled with something between sadness and pride. "They're my children." He stepped closer. "Our children." She didn't answer. That silence was louder than any scream. Later, inside the farmhouse kitchen, they sat across from each other. Naomi poured tea with hands that slightly trembled. Ethan couldn't stop staring, not at her, but at the family photos on the wall. 3 smiling faces. A mother alone, raising them with love. He could feel years of guilt crawling up his throat. "I never knew," he said finally. "I didn't tell you," Naomi replied quietly. "You had your world, Ethan. You were busy being a billionaire. I didn't think you'd care." "That's not fair," he said, his voice breaking. "You think I wouldn't care about my own children?" She met his eyes. "Would you? You couldn't even care about your wife back then." Her words cut deep. He looked down, remembering the nights he chose meetings over dinners, calls over conversations, fame over family. Naomi continued, softer now. "When I left, I was already pregnant. I tried to tell you once. Your assistant said you were out of the country and that you'd moved on. So I did too. I raised them alone. They've never known a father." Ethan's chest felt like it was collapsing. "Naomi, I would have been there. I would have done something." She sighed. "Maybe, but we can't change what's gone." Just then, the kids burst into the kitchen, laughing and asking for snacks. Naomi smiled gently, her eyes shining with the warmth of a mother. Ethan watched silently, the way she hugged them, wiped their faces, kissed their foreheads. Something inside him cracked open. He suddenly felt small, smaller than he'd ever felt in any boardroom or deal. When the kids saw him, they grew curious. "Mom, who's that man?" the little girl asked. Naomi hesitated. Ethan's heart thumped hard. "This is Mr. Carter," she said slowly. "He owns the farm." The boy squinted. "He looks like us." Naomi froze. Ethan felt tears rise, but quickly looked away. "Maybe just coincidence," she said gently. But the oldest boy, smart and bold, stood closer to Ethan. "Sir, do you have kids?" Ethan swallowed hard. "Not that I know of." He paused, then smiled faintly. "But maybe I should have." The boy tilted his head, puzzled, and Naomi quickly changed the subject. As evening fell, Ethan walked outside alone. The golden light touched the fields, and for the first time in years, he didn't feel proud of his empire. He felt regret. Naomi joined him quietly, folding her arms. "They deserve better," Ethan said softly. "They deserve a father." She nodded. "But they already have one. Me." He looked at her with deep respect. "You're right. You've done everything alone. You're stronger than I ever was." Silence stretched between them again, but it wasn't heavy this time. It was healing. Then Naomi turned to him. "You can be part of their lives if you truly mean it. But no money, no fame. Just you." Ethan smiled weakly. "That's the easiest deal I've ever made." Over the next few weeks, Ethan kept his word. He didn't show up in fancy cars or designer suits. He came like a normal man, helping on the farm, fixing fences, teaching the kids small things like how to ride bikes and fly kites. At first, they were shy, then curious, then trusting. Naomi watched from afar, seeing the same man she once fell in love with, but quieter, humbler, more human. One evening, while watching the sunset, Ethan looked at her and said, "You were right to leave me, but I'm grateful fate brought you back." Naomi smiled faintly. "Maybe some stories aren't about revenge or regret. Maybe they're about second chances." He looked at the three children running across the field, their laughter mixing with the wind. For the first time in a long time, Ethan didn't feel like the richest man in the world. He was the richest man in the world, just in a different way. Sometimes, money can buy everything, except the moments you've already lost. But if life ever gives you a second chance, don't waste it. If you enjoyed this story, hit the like button and subscribe for more powerful stories like this one. Tell us in the comments, do you believe people deserve second chances?